I'm like a little sad that Halloween is over. It doesn't feel real. Like I don't know, I feel like the way I used to feel when I was little the day after Christmas is how I feel after Halloween now. Like, I was so hyped to wear my costume, and I wore my costume, and I was like, I'm in my costume. And then it was just over. I don't know, it's kind of the last 2 years I've been I like to cope with the sadness of Halloween being done. Um, I got the idea from that show Gravity Falls, which I haven't even finished, but this is the wrong pen. There's an episode where they do Summerween, like the whole town does Summerween, and I was like, wait, that's like a really good idea. I want to do Summerween, and then I was talking to my friends, and I was like, you know what? Why stop at Summerween? Like, why not Winterween? Why not Springaween? Um, and then Halloween. So I did that the last 2 years, but I always forget Springaween. Last year on Halloween, I was Captain Picard. I'm thinking about using that costume again for Winterween. Because last Halloween, I was like new to town. Like, I didn't really know anyone. I didn't know where to go. And I feel like I had the full like jumpsuit and the buttons, and I had all my hair tied back so I'd look bald. I should get a bald cap. Yeah, I just love Captain Picard. So I should like commit. I should get a bald cap instead of just tying my hair down, and that's what I should do for Winterween, which I have declared to be January 31st. It was fun though. Like, we didn't go too many places because like I said, I didn't really know like where the cool places to go were, but I did try to say make it so as much as I could. You're right. Who doesn't love Captain Picard? Everyone loves him. Even the Borg love him. Oh, being a Borg would be a really cool costume too, but that would take a lot more work. Captain Picard is kind of easy because it's really just the outfit. That was so fun though. I'm totally doing that. Bald cap can't be that expensive. I feel like it would be hard to not have my hair look like lumpy underneath it though. This past summer I was Athena, and I really just wore like the Huntress costume from what's it called, from Spirit Halloween. It's like gray and it comes with a cape and a sword and like a little belt, and then I had like Viking horns. The Greek goddess. And I felt like Athena would wear like a horn adorned helmet. So I wore that. Athena's my favorite. Of all the Greek gods and goddesses, I would relate the most with her. I think she was considered, I guess the word is like the patron goddess of like craftsmanship as well as like strategy and all that. I just recently learned about her whole thing with Arachne, which I can't believe I didn't know about sooner. Sorry. And how Arachne was like, I'm better at weaving than Athena. And Athena was like, no, you're not. And turned her into a spider. Been reading a lot of mythology lately. Like, there's the stories that I feel like everyone knows. But then there's so many other little ones that get kind of swept under the rug, less popular. So I've been like just collecting mythology books, not just Greek myths, but like as many as I can find, and trying to read them all. And I love finding the overlap. Like, there's so many commonalities between Greek mythology and Chinese mythology. I just think that's so cool. I just want to know like as much mythology as I can. I don't even know what to do with all of that. I don't even remember what the story was, but there was a Chinese myth that was so exactly, and it was short, like at least the telling of it in the book that I have. It was so short, but it was so exactly like um, the story of the Garden of Eden. I was like, this is the same story. I've been trying to be like a lot more patient with my ideas too. Like before, I wouldn't take the time to think about like, okay, how can I make this like obsession with mythology into art? I would just not even dwell on it because I would be like, I just gotta make art. I don't have time to worry about this. I gotta figure out what I want to do here. It's supposed to be kind of in shadow. Like the reference photo I was working off of, it was really dark. But I'm not making the hair look exactly like the reference either, but I'm gonna kind of be winging it here. Like I don't want the shapes to look stupid. I just read like a really brief summary of the Odyssey. The last time I read the Odyssey, I was in high school and I totally just skimmed it. Like I did not read it properly. I need to read it again. I just finished the Iliad. But I'm really interested in like the story of, I think it's pronounced Scylla, and I think she shows up in the Odyssey. And the first time I read it, I didn't know like the myth about her and her whole thing, so I think it'll be interesting. I don't think she has a huge part in it, but still, it'll be cool seeing monster Scylla. I also have like a more modern translation of the Odyssey. I think it's by Emily Wilson, maybe? And I think for the most part, her translation is pretty true to the original, but some of the interpretations of like women are different. Like in the story of Circe, like that whole interaction is a little bit different. Yeah, Scylla. So I was like looking up what she was actually supposed to look like because I always pictured a big sea snake too. But apparently she had like snake arms or something and then like hounds on her waist. And isn't that just the weirdest thing? Like dog heads on a sea monster? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Um, it's just bizarre. I don't like the way it looks. Like if I were to, I want to like draw Scylla one day, and I was trying to decide like, do I stay true to their telling of her, or do I like do my own interpretation? And I think I would just do my own. But yeah, like the, wait, really? I didn't know that. It's the old Greek word for female dog. Well, that explains a lot. I was just about to say, like, I didn't understand why there were dogs, and I thought it was really weird and ugly. So I used the, like, really small, like, .005 pen for, like, all of this, but now I'm outlining with this .01 micron pen. And I know that this is also, like, a pretty fine tip, but it seems, like, super thick to me, and I'm not used to it. I'm like a little bit scared of how thick these lines look. I don't want it to look like super cartoony, but I don't need it to look super realistic either, so we'll see. Dude, I still haven't watched Castlevania, and I really, really want to because it seems amazing. And I also want to play the game because I didn't even know it was a game until I found out about the show. I mean, I'm gonna assume that the games are better because anytime a show is based on something, the thing it's based on is usually better. The one exception I found to that rule, and I feel like this is controversial, but Game of Thrones, I liked the show better than the books. Until, I mean, I guess it's not totally fair though, because the show ended and the books are still not done. And honestly, if I was R.R. Martin, I probably wouldn't even finish them at this point. And that's kind of been my reservation with the Witcher show. I know I talked about this yesterday too, so I'm being redundant, but I feel like everyone I know who really liked the show like didn't play the games. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I played the games. So like, what if I hate the show because I'm comparing it to the games? And now I'm reading the books too. And the books have kind of the same feel as the game to me so far. I'm only like maybe halfway through the second one, the Sword of whatever. What's it called? Let me look real quick. The Sword of Destiny. I was going to say the Sword of Fate. I'm actually listening to the audiobook and the guy reading it is doing such a good job. Yes, okay, Cozy Art, exactly. Like the book, and I listened to the audiobook of Game of Thrones too, and I know that if I had like sat down and physically read it instead of listening to it like while I was working, I don't know if I would have finished them because you're not even exaggerating when you say he would describe the food for 10 pages. And it wasn't even good food. It was like moldy bread. And it would be like, I would be sitting there at my little desk for like hours just listening to this guy talk about like how much bread was on the table. And then when he got to a battle scene, it was like, at one point my coworker was like, "What's wrong?" Because I was pulling all these faces. I was like, while he was describing just the battle scenes, I don't know. It wasn't super fun. And yeah, it did get kind of boring sometimes. And I know some people are like kind of elitist about those books, and I'm like, I don't know why you hate yourself. Like there's nothing wrong with a book being fun to read. And those books are like textbooks. Yeah, The Witcher 3 was my favorite, probably game ever. And it's hard to. But yeah, I liked the second game a lot. And then when I played the third one, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I felt it's like the perfect marriage of open world and strong story. Like, yeah, you can pick up every single flower you see and you can craft what kind of armor, but you can also find really cool armor. Because I like finding like armor that has a lore and like cool perks and all that stuff. And that was my thing with like Dragon Age Inquisitions, kind of like skimped on armor you could find so that you would craft stuff more. But yeah, so I just have a hard time feeling like the show The Witcher will be able to compare with the third game. I'm excited to read more of the books though. Like so far I've liked them. Um but yeah, I've only read 2 and I think there's like 7. So I got a ways to go. It's interesting in the book seeing like more of Geralt and Yennefer's relationship. Cuz in the second one in the game, she wasn't in it like at all except for just like someone that he couldn't remember. And I romanced, oh my god, someone just walked by my window and it creeped me out. I romanced Triss, and I really liked Triss. I thought she was like so cool and so sweet. And so when the third game came along, I was like, who's this Yennefer bitch? Like, where's Triss? And so I was interested to read more about Yennefer in the books because I was like, oh, maybe I'll like her better because I can get to know her a little more. Like, no, I don't like her better. I like her worse. I think she sucks. Oh, I just realized my camera isn't showing what I'm doing. Hello, Allison. The whole point of this is to draw on camera. I find it really hard to make sure this hand is clearly in the foreground with this hair. Like getting the lines to match up, like to meet without it looking like I'm stopping. I don't know how to say it, but it's hard. So Obzio, if you're here still, did you read all of the Witcher books? And did you read them before playing the games? Because I mean, it's probably obvious. I played the games first. I actually didn't even know they were based on books until I started The Wild Hunt. And I don't know if this is true, but I heard, like, a friend told me that the author, when they wanted to make the game, they, like, asked him for the rights, and I think they made him, like, kind of a low offer, and he was like, yeah, whatever, like, nobody cares about the story, like, your game isn't gonna do well. I think he was kind of, like, disappointed with how well the books were selling or something. Like I said, I have no idea if that's true. I never, like, looked it up to verify it. It just sounds like one of those things that's true until I'm in a situation like this where I'm telling the story myself, and then I'm like, wait, is that even true? Like, that could easily just be, like, completely made up. There's been so many times when people tell me things like it's a fact, like they're so sure, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I believe you. And then I go look it up and it's completely wrong. That's crazy. Okay, well, I'm glad that that's... Well, I don't know if I'm glad it's true, but I'm glad that I didn't just, like, make that up. But so did he end up getting more money? I actually didn't know that he went after them for more. I don't blame him. Especially, I think that The Wild Hunt won, like, Game of the Year. I would be so upset. I can't imagine how he felt. Like, oh, these games will never be anything, and then they're, like, incredible. Because when you sell the rights, I think you just completely lose any, yeah, you lose, like, any right to, like, profit. He must have been sure that nothing would come of it. Kind of interesting, like, you'd think someone who didn't have humility as their biggest trait would be more hesitant, like, would be like, oh, these books are going to be amazing, you got to give me more money, or these characters, these games. One of the first book, I was listening to the audiobook, and for some reason the reader, like, instead of saying dandelion, he said dandelion, and I thought it was so strange. I was like, what made him think it was pronounced that way? And now in the second book he's saying dandelion, so I'm like, oh, someone must have corrected him. But it was so funny just hearing, like, dandelion over and over. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's just dandelion. They're nice to listen to. I feel like they'd be easy reads too. But it makes, like, listening to books is just so much easier than reading them. Like I said earlier, I would never have sat down and read, what was it, 5 Game of Thrones books? Like, those books are painful. Yeah, the reader for the audiobooks, he does the different voices well, you know? Like, I've listened to a couple audiobooks where the person is trying to make it clear that they're doing different characters, but it's like, I don't know, it's too much where it just feels kind of like cartoony, you know? Like, and even when he's reading for Yennefer, it's like he does a great job reading for a woman. And yeah, the dandelion thing it was silly. That's like a small thing. It did make me laugh though. I think I'm gonna try to, like, finish the Witcher series if I can. Like, I think I just want to listen to all of them. I'm getting through them pretty quickly. Like, the audiobooks are pretty short. And then a friend of mine had recommended this book, Mexican Gothic, and I have that on hold. So I'll probably read that next. But that's not a series, it's just one. And I feel like it's not going to be that long. And then I can check out the Stormlight Archives and the Mistborn series because those sound cool. And I think actually, like, Mistborn sounds familiar now that I'm saying it. I feel like I've seen it or heard of it. Series because there's like the comfort of knowing, like, okay, for the next, like, however many weeks, I can just focus on one story. I do that with shows too. Like, I always wait until a show is like over before I start watching it. Like when Game of Thrones was really popular, I was like, I am not doing that thing where I watch one season and then I have to wait like half a year to find out what's going to happen. So I waited and I waited, and then when there was when the 7th season had come out on like DVD or something, or when it was like streaming on Hulu, that's when I watched all of it. And I thought the 7th season was going to be the last season, so I was pretty annoyed when it wasn't. I was like, oh, so now I actually do have to wait for a season. But by that point, like, I don't know, the show had kind of like gone off the rails a little bit, and I didn't really care as much what happened. And I actually never finished the last season. I just had people, like, people were talking about it. I was like, you can just tell me what happened. Like, I don't think I'm going to watch it. And I'm kind of glad I didn't. It sounded really bad. I did see the episode where they were like, they fought the white ones or whatever they were called. And like we were talking about Athena earlier, like she would not have approved those that battle strategy. Like send in all the Dothraki with their flashlights to charge into the dark. Like that's you don't do you, no. That's silly. And they just charged head first. They didn't even like attempt to flank or anything. Like that makes no sense. Yeah, like it's so much more fun to just binge. Like watching 7 seasons of Game of Thrones in like I think it took 2 weeks or something. Like that was so much more fun than watching it one season at a time over the course of like years. Dude, I even noticed that in The Witcher what you're saying about the way they it's like sadly not that surprising, but it's also like don't you want to be a little, don't you want to have a little more depth with your writing? It's like, we don't need to spend this much time on like Yennefer's boobs. Like, yeah, like the measurements of the proportions of their waists, and then like with the guys, it's like exactly like you said, it's their armor and their weapons and their like their thoughts and their reactions, and then the women, it's like her hair gently fell on the cusp of her boob. Like, alright, that's cool. Like, let's either describe women less sexually or just even the playing field and describe men more sexually. I love that you compared, like, you approached Game of Thrones, Eric, the same way you approached True Blood. Like, I wonder if we could find a ton of commonalities between those shows. I've never seen True Blood, but it looks super fun. Oh, I noticed. I totally forgot about that in American Gods, but I remembered that and I thought it was like now that you mention it, I remember it and I remember thinking it was so weird that it came up. I was like, this doesn't fit in with like what this book is about. Like, I don't really need to know. Like, what a weird detail to make sure that everyone is picturing in their minds. I agree with both of you, like character development is so important, and I think with Game of Thrones that's what I felt like was kind of missing in the end. Like people were just dying so much, and then it was more about like the battles and who's gonna get the throne, and I just felt like the characters that were left were making decisions that just didn't make sense with who they were. Like it almost felt like they were making decisions just to move the plot along, and it just didn't line up with like everything we knew about them. And that turns me off. And I like when characters are like, I mean, I know everyone's like this, but when characters are like complex, like when they have the same like quirks and inconsistencies that a regular person would have. And this is like such a weird example because it's not fantasy at all, but I watched a lot of Bob's Burgers this weekend. And like in Bob's Burgers, you have Louise, who's like the total chaotic, deviant troublemaker, like not into girly things, not into other people, like cares about herself, cares about making money. But then also she has this like ridiculous crush on Boo Boo from that boy band, and she's like obsessed with him and she like knows everything about him. And I love that because I feel like some shows like they write a character that way, like, oh, they're the troublemaking deviant, and then they don't have like there's like nothing else to them. Like they're so one dimensional. And that makes them predictable, and that makes the show not fun to watch. So yeah, Bob's Burgers A plus character development. Maybe George R. R. Martin could take a page out of their book. How many people would it piss off if I were to go to like some sort of fantasy gathering and say that Bob's Burgers is better than Game of Thrones? Like, would someone fight me? I feel like they would. Okay, and I love that both of you are on board with my like trolling Game of Thrones fans idea. Like your support of this idea is making me want to do it. If there's ever some sort of convention, it's happening. Who's your favorite fantasy actor? I'll be like H. John Benjamin. I think his portrayal of Bob Belcher is just like really fantastic. The score, Bob's Burgers, is just superior. The lore of Bob's Burgers, the character development. I'm trying to think of other Bob's Burgers things. The way that they describe food is so much better than the way George R. R. Martin describes food. And that's completely true. Yeah, I think I heard with American Gods that they got like a new writer in the second season and it just sucked from there. Or it like changed kind of. That's too bad. I thought the book was interesting other than like the random fixation on areola sizes. The Witchers aren't. Oh my god. Like, from what you've said about him, I feel like he actually would follow me home, like ranting, and maybe he would kill me. And I'd become like a true crime story, and they'd like be interviewing him, and he'd be like, no, I had to. I had to do it. I don't know much about George R. R. Martin's personality, but I kind of get the vibe that he like wouldn't even care. He'd be like, sure, Bob's Burgers is better, whatever. That's fine. How many people die in Bob's Burgers? Not as many people as in my book. And I'd be like, actually, there was a murder in Bob's Burgers in season 5 when they go to Helen's house. I don't remember the name of the episode, but there was intrigue and mystery. I could write a paper about this. Should I make a PowerPoint about why Bob's Burgers is the best fantasy series? Or just why it's better than Game of Thrones? I could do that in probably 20 minutes. I feel like I've already listed a bunch of viable examples. Okay, I'm gonna do it. That's my homework. I love making PowerPoints, you guys, so this will be fun. I'll present it next stream. Like one time I made a PowerPoint about who's the most attractive James Bond actor. At the time, I said Timothy Dalton. I think I'd stand by that. But I had listed reasons like why it's not Daniel Craig, why it's absolutely not Roger Moore. It was very, like, I put a lot of work into it. Oh my god, if it went viral, I would be proud to have that be my legacy. The Bond films are fine. You kind of have to watch the old ones with the same energy that you would watch like the original Star Trek series. Like, they're just silly. There's a lot of like smooth talking guy punching a woman, and it's like just a lot of sexism. And if you try to watch it like as a serious film, it's like It's too goofy. Like, you can't take it seriously. Like, a villain named Octopussy, that's not real. Like, what are you supposed to do with that except laugh at it? But the newer ones are fine. It's just that I like Daniel Craig kind of looks like a biscuit to me, and I say that with love. Like, he's a great actor and he's fit. He's got a great body. He's a great Bond, but he looks like a biscuit. And I love biscuits, but I don't think they're sexy. I'm not wrong about this biscuit thing. That was a slide in my PowerPoint, actually. Listen, Obzio, like, we are the same. Fast and Furious is one of my favorite ridiculous franchises. Like, I love it. I love it. And I would call it a guilty pleasure, but I refuse to feel guilty for liking it anymore because it's just like it's fun. It's so bad. Like, Tokyo Drift is maybe one of the worst movies just in the world. But I love it. I probably watch all of them like at least once a year or like Too Fast, Too Furious. Anytime like someone parallel parks or changes lanes quickly, I quote that movie. I have to say, you're a good driver, bro. Because you can't beat that. Like, what amazing writing. Fast 5, I think. I think that was like the Avengers type one where they all like reunited to take down that like Brazilian crime lord or something. Oh yeah, that's when The Rock came in. Like, that's when the vibe like really went 0 to 100. Everything about Tokyo Drift is terrible. Like, the fact that the actor, you learned drifting because of it. You're my hero. I love it. There's a little there's like a sharp turn, kind of like the ones like perfect for drifting, like on this back road coming to my apartment, and I'm so tempted to learn how to drift on it, but I drive a Jeep. Like, I'm pretty sure I would just flip over. So if I'm ever super rich, I'll buy myself another car and drift in it. But the fact that the actor in Tokyo Drift like is supposed to be a high school student and he literally looks like 35. Like, he has a receding hairline. I love it. Like, I love that they did that. And then when they're drifting on the mountain and they're like looking into each other's eyes on that date and they're like, when you drift, and then they finish each other's sentences. They're like, it's like nothing else matters or something. Oh, but my favorite part of Tokyo Drift is when he says, day I got my driver's license. It's the day I got my first ticket. Day after that, I won my first race. Like, whoa. If you can't handle me at my Mortal Kombat annihilation, then you don't deserve my A24. You gotta get that. What kind of font would you get that in? Imagine doing like the white lady like house sign, like live, laugh, love font, where like some of it is in script and some of it is in those like really long letters. Dude, not only do they still sell, they're like a lifestyle. Like, I didn't know what Hobby Lobby was. That like craft store. I thought it was like every other kind of like art store, like Michael's or something. Like, I knew there would be some of those weirdo signs. But Hobby Lobby is like 200% those weirdo signs. Like, at every corner, it was nothing but those signs. And it was like kind of scary. Like, I felt like I was in another dimension. Like a dimension of Karens. And it was like every phrase you could imagine. They wrote it on a wooden sign in that weird font. It was like, oh, I wish I could think of them. It was like Bible verses. It was like, thankful, blessed. This house runs on caffeine. Who's buying these things? I never see them out in the wild, but they're like, I don't see the homes of the people who have. I guess they would never invite me over. If you ever see someone buying those, it's a red flag. For sure. You can't trust that person. I went, what month is it? It was October when I went. And it was full. It wasn't even Halloween yet, and it was full. There wasn't a single Halloween thing in there. It was only Christmas things. and a bunch of Thanksgiving things, which I guess is pretty on brand. And yeah, they put the Christ in Christmas 100%. All of those old white ladies were like, they were like, it's like they could tell that I didn't believe in God. Like if someone had pulled out like a cross and held it up to me, I wouldn't have even been surprised. Peak Jesus capitalism, that's the culture. It's a movement. Like I've never seen so much Jesus stuff in my life. I was like, are we in a church? I was like, where are we? Like, did we step into another dimension? And it's called Hobby Lobby, but there was not a single, like, we had to walk all the way to the back before we got to anything that could constitute as a hobby. Like, we found puzzles. We were like, oh, okay, people do puzzles. And guess what the puzzles were of? Jesus. I didn't even know there were Jesus puzzles. I don't think that's a hobby. I did that one time. I remember, like, going to one of those weird little churches because like the guy that I liked was going for like a youth group or something, and I already like knew I didn't believe in God, but I was like, well, I'm going. And then they had like the communion wine, like real wine, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, how do we get more of this wine? That's the only reason to go. But yeah, we didn't get more. It wasn't fair. And then it got creepy. Like I thought they were going to sacrifice us because they took us into another. The church was like in the middle of nowhere because this is Toano, Virginia. It was like in the woods. And then they took us out to another little mini church altar building. And that's where we drank the blood of Christ. And I was like, are we going to die here tonight? We didn't, but that's the makings of a horror movie. And the middle school, I went to middle school in Toano, and they don't have uniforms anymore, but the uniforms were insane. You had to wear a white, navy, or orange polo. You could not wear jeans. You could only wear khakis or navy pants or a skirt if you were a girl. And you had to tuck in your polo shirt, and also your polo couldn't have a logo on it. So if you wanted to get like, most cute polos will have like a Ralph Lauren logo or like something similar, like a knockoff. So you couldn't wear that. It had to be a plain polo shirt, and you had to tuck it in, and you had to wear a belt, and the belt could only be black. Like, what was that? And you're like 12, so you're already awkward, and then they're making you wear like the ugliest thing. It was the worst. Yeah, the uniforms, like, they said that the point was to like make it so kids wouldn't tease each other about not having like trendy brands or trendy clothes. But I mean, kids are gonna tease you about something no matter what, especially when you're that age. And honestly, like, making everyone wear such unflattering, ugly clothes, like, they were just giving the kids more fuel to add to the fire. Like, people were getting teased about how bad they looked in the polos. And oh, and they said it was also to like not make it obvious like who could afford nicer clothes and who couldn't. Like, they were trying to, I guess, minimize the impact of like wealth discrepancy or something. Like, they didn't want the rich kids picking on the poor kids. But I mean, you could tell the rich kids. You could tell. It didn't matter. Like, rich people just look rich. Or like the people who are rich and want to look rich, they'll look rich. Like, not being able to wear a whatever trendy brand, Hollister or whatever it was at the time, that's not gonna stop them. Okay, the golf course was somewhere between New Kent and Providence Forge. Okay, yeah, New Kent is like before Toano when you're coming from Williamsburg or from Richmond, but they're close. They're really similar. Yeah, you're right. They're pretty much the same. Yeah, I felt like it was a control thing because I remember at one point, like, just to feel stylish, like, my friends and I started just like wearing our belts a little differently. Like, instead of the buckle being in the very front, you know, like where your belly button is. We had it where we just put it through the loops one over. So the belt buckle was like on the side of our waist. And that's totally harmless. It was just us like trying to like have a unique style, and they made it against the rules to do that. And I think I got like in school suspension for that. I love Dragon Age though. It's amazing. Are you playing Origins? I'm so jealous that it's your first playthrough. Oh, but it's your first playthrough on PC, so maybe you've played it before. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just played it for the first time on PC right before I started Mass Effect. And like, yeah, it's so... I loved it. Like at first it was kind of hard for me to get used to. But then once I figured out like, oh, I can do these moves. I can hotkey so many more fighting moves, and it looks better. I loved it. I love Dragon Age. I felt like the movement was better too. But yeah, it took me a couple days to get used to spinning around and stuff. I was so used to using a controller. What origin are you doing? The last one I did the Dwarven Noble origin. And I did a female dwarf. Bye, Obzio. Have a good night. It was fun hanging out. Male noble warrior. Nice. Human? Human noble? Are you going to be king? Who are you going to romance? I have so many questions. I love talking to people about their Dragon Age playthroughs. Nice. I love the human origin. That was the first one I did. I think it's kind of my favorite because of the rivalry with Hal. Like it makes fighting Hal later so much more satisfying. And I also found out that as the human noble, you can have sex with like the parent's friend brings her son and daughter to your estate or whatever, and you can like flirt with them, and then you can like have a little thing with them, and that brings the drama even higher. I love it. I'm like, I love all these little things, all these little hidden romance opportunities that go nowhere. You can be such a hoe in those games. I love it. No one cares. Well, Wynn cares. Again, romancing Morrigan is fun, but she's like, she gets so jealous. I feel like Liliana is probably like the best. Maybe she's the best romance. I don't know. I think the game, like, at least if you're a girl, it really pushes you towards Alistair. Maybe just you meet him right away and he's so funny. But Liliana's like so sweet. Although the first time I met her, I was like a little turned off by how into the maker she was. I was like, that's weird. You can be. I've only played a man like once, and I only did it to romance Morrigan. You do a favor and you... Oh, wait, yes, I remember that. Like, you can help... I did that when I helped... What's her name? Like, Caitlin or Catherine or something. She's looking for her little brother, right? In Redcliffe. And she's just like... I don't know if you're there yet, but you've played before. And she just is crying and, like... She thinks her brother's dead, and you bring her brother, and you're like, found him. And she's like, oh my god, thank you. And you're like, kiss me. The game is so fun. I love how just like chaotic evil you can be in that game if you want to. Like one time I told Colgrim that I would defile the urn, and I did, but then I killed him anyway. Like, there's no point to that. But you can do it, so I did it. Wait, and the fact that you can you can demand kisses from more than one girl. That is so creepy and so funny. Like you can really be a scoundrel in that game. One time I don't remember what dialogue options I chose, but I was arguing with Lloyd and Redcliffe about like going to fight and he got mad at me and I killed him. And I thought that that girl Bella, I thought she'd be upset, but she didn't even care. And then I think I asked her for a kiss too. Like, but you can't have your romance option with you because I was romancing Morgan when I did that, and she like disapproved -5 every time I would flirt with these other women, which I guess is fair. I would disapprove -5 if my boyfriend was demanding kisses from random women right in front of me. And I love, like, the warden has so many dialogue options. Like, you can pick so many, like, sassy ones. I love it. And then I kind of like that there's no voice. So, because, like, in Mass Effect, it's like you pick the dialogue option and then Shepard says something a little bit different that's only, like, it's like in the same, you know, like if the dialogue option on the weapon wheel says, I don't think so, then Shepard says, like, I'm not going to let you do that, or something like that. But I like that in Dragon Age, the warden doesn't say anything, so you can just imagine that exactly what you picked is what's being said. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm the same way. If someone is like, if I detect like a level 1 snark, like, I'm going level 6 snark. Like, if that's the way that this interaction is going, like, let's go. And the warden is absolutely like that. It's the best. I like how if you're not human and Duncan takes you to meet King Kalen and you can just fully disrespect him. Like, he'll be like, I'm King Kalen. And you're like, you're not my king, punk ass bitch. I don't give. I agree. It's more immersive. Like, I I played Dragon Age 2 immediately after playing Origins, and hearing Hawk like really threw me off. And I didn't like it for a while. I was like, no, this is not right. But those games are just so different, and Hawk is great. But I love the silence. Like, I feel like the lines are bumping into each other too much. I can't tell if I'm like making this work worse. Like, I might be overworking this section. It's just scary drawing so close to the face. Like, I don't want to mess up the face. That face, this face, I was sure I was going to ruin it. I hardly ever draw like looking up like that. And until I finished the mouth, weirdly, like the mouth not being done was what was making her look insane. And then I finished the mouth and now I think she looks great. But like, I put so much effort into getting it right. I don't want to mess it up by like a misstroke while I'm filling in the hair. Alright, well, I need to take a break from this because I feel like if I draw on it too much more, I'm gonna ruin it. I need to like, um, you know, like when you're looking at something too long and it just stops even looking like a drawing anymore, like that's starting to happen to me. So I'm gonna take a rest, but this was super fun. Oh yeah, we talked about Fast and Furious. That was like the highlight of my day. So I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Do fun things. I don't know. I don't know how to end this stuff. I don't know how to say goodbye. It's weird. I'll just talk to you guys later. Bye.